Okay, this is my lupus story. I use this old-time movie mode because I don't like the way I look now that I'm on steroids and with the disease, but I'll try to show you guys what I look like, just so you know who I really am. My face is really blotchy. The reason I am doing videos is because with my lupus, it ended up triggering additional diseases, including it became mixed connective tissue disease after 20-something years of having lupus. And it triggered a neuromuscular disease. So I have a very difficult time typing, and even when I can type, I try to limit it because the more I use my muscles, the more paralyzed they become. And when they start to paralyze, it starts spreading, and then it gets dangerous. So I have to be very careful, so I apologize for, I just don't want you guys thinking I'm lazy. My lupus story. When I was 6, I got rheumatic fever, and it caused me to go deaf in one ear and partially deaf in the other. We thought that that was all it had caused. But then as a kid, I kept having strange symptoms, joint pain. I got arthritis at a very young age in multiple joints. I'd get these very, very strange rashes all over me and blotches and up and down my arms, my face. I also would get pleurisy, and I also got pericarditis, and I got pleurisy more than a few times. I ended up missing the first half of my first year of high school. I was in and out of the hospital that entire time, and I'd get to come home for a couple days, and then I'd have to go back. And it was because I kept getting bladder infections that would go straight to my kidneys, and I would pee blood, and they couldn't figure it out, and they couldn't get it under control. And nobody ever checked me for lupus. They did tell my parents, my mother, that this is not normal, you need to get her into a specialist. But she thought once things cleared up that it was just a fluke, you know, and that I was fine. And I would get severe lethargy and periodically, and I'd have to just stop and lay down right then. I mean, I know you guys know what that's like, and I think we've all gone through it, and you feel like you can't even move a finger, anything. And, you know, my parents, and even my doctor, they would just, you know, think the lethargy thing was all in my head. They'd say, oh, get up, there's nothing wrong with you, because my CBCs would come out normal. And even though I had all these weird things, you know, pericarditis, pleurisy, inflamed joints, they just thought that the lethargy was just in my head, right? Over time, I started waking up between having Bleb's disease, which is the air pockets on your lungs. Mine are actually very large, and they can weigh down the lung and collapse it. So whenever I get pleurisy, my lungs started to collapse. And they collapsed so much that it put a hole through my lung. And I ended up having to have major surgery on one side to glue my lung to my chest wall. And what actually led, though, to my diagnosis was that I ended up getting cervical cancer. And when you get cancer, you know, they start looking at everything, making sure it hasn't spread. And I had some more scopes done, and that's when they found what the urologist had always missed. See, when the urologist would do the scope into my bladder for looking for cystitis or something, nothing would be there. When I got cancer, they did a scope to check on my ovaries, and they saw my bladder, and it was covered in cystitis on the outside of my bladder instead of the inside. I'm not sure how that normally works, but apparently that's how they missed it. Another thing they caught was that I had thrombosis severely throughout my body. I mean, everywhere. My abdomen, my legs, everything. And it turned out I had vasculitis. So I went to my primary and said, I was only 28 years old at that point, and said, look, you know, I think it's kind of odd that I have all these things going wrong with me. I'm too young for this. Something's causing all this havoc in my body. This isn't normal. And he kept saying, you know, well, you just have conditions. I had a lot of heart problems at this point, too. And I knew it wasn't normal. And finally he thought about it and said, you know what, you're right. It's not normal. He sent me to a pulmonologist who misdiagnosed me with some rare lung disease and told me I had 5 to 10 years to live, that I'd be lucky to live 5. Told me I couldn't work out, couldn't do cardiovascular, couldn't do calisthenics because I was at such a high risk of giving myself a heart attack. That was scary. I had children to take care of. So I ended up getting pneumonia, and I was having a hard time fighting it off. And once I did, I was mad, and I thought, I'm too weak because I'm not active enough. So I started jogging every day, and I started to feel a little better. And then I started working out at the gym every day, well, 3 to 4 times a week, but I also did Taekwondo 3 times a week, and I also worked, and I also took care of my kids, did ballroom dance classes, and then I thought, wow, maybe it was my fault all along. Maybe I wasn't pushing myself hard enough. Maybe I needed to be a health food fanatic and exercise freak to be well. But then I suddenly got really sick again while doing those things because I was overdoing it. I was in remission, and I didn't even know it. Finally, a friend of mine said, wait, he looked at my hands and said, you have Raynaud's. I had never heard of Raynaud's. He said, my daughter has Raynaud's, and you have a lot of the same symptoms she does, and they think she has lupus. Have you been checked? So finally my doctor checks me for lupus. Between that, my ANA was 130 that time. That was when it was low. And then the accumulation of things from the cervical cancer that they found, you know, the thrombosis, the vascular disease, just different things. They finally pieced it together. However, the problems I ran into were doctors trying to constantly unlabel me, telling me that they didn't want me to be labeled with something so nasty. I actually had 3 different doctors do that to me and tried to undiagnose me. But I kept working through all of this, and by the time I was 36, the lupus started triggering additional diseases, and my ANA jumped up to 1,280. And it's never been the same since. As a matter of fact, nothing's ever been the same since. I continued to work even then, and until I went to get out of bed one morning, and I could no longer walk. And that's because lupus can trigger a certain set of diseases, like lupus scleroderma vasculitis, and then it's called mixed connective tissue disease. And when that happens, it can trigger a neuromuscular factor, and I happen to get a progressive neuromuscular disease, which will probably take my life. It almost has already. It paralyzes my breathing muscles, my jaw, makes me choke a lot. I'm bedridden. Once in a while I can make it out of my bed into the kitchen. Sometimes I need help though to get back. Sometimes I can get to the bathroom by myself, and sometimes I can't. But the doctors who called it nasty really irked me. It made me realize how misunderstood lupus was, and how underdiagnosed it was. So it set me off on a mission of awareness, and I used to spread blogs, create columns, get people to share them. I'd come across information, I'd push them, I'd tell my friends, share it, please, if you're my friend, you'll share this information. But then for the last year and a half, I was so sick in my bed that I was just withering away, and I wasn't able to do awareness. But then after the steroids start taking effect, I'm at least able to talk and sit up, and I can occasionally type. So my kids went out and got me a camcorder, or a little webcam, so that I could video respond to my friends and family's emails. And about 4 days later, I realized, you know what? I can sit up and talk, and if I can hit that record button, I can spread awareness. And so that's what I've been doing. And then I saw this link about sharing stories, and I thought, this is wonderful. I read your guys' stories, and they are so awesome. And to me, it's so brave, because there's so many misconceptions about this disease, and the labels that even some doctors will put on it. Not many, thank God, but some. I think more people should share their stories. I think we need to educate people and clear up all those misconceptions, and I hope that we can educate people about this disease and let them realize that it's not nasty at all. It's actually very common, and it's a very serious disease. Thanks for watching.